So I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't like ternary statements. I've never liked ternary statements, specifically a bunch of how much you want to bet. There's a huge number of them. Specifically, a bunch of these. Like when I see a statement like this, I think that you've done messed up. I think that you have greatly screwed up your code, and whatever shortcuts you think you're taking, you're just not taking the right shortcuts. I already knew that was going to be in here because, of course, it's about ternaries, right? And so when I see that and we try to make it more accessible to use ternaries, to me, this feels like we've gone the wrong direction, okay? I'm just throwing that out there. Now let's read this article. So that's the mentality I'm coming in with, okay? It's the mentality I'm coming in with, all right? Just so you know. November 13th, 2023, Alex Rattray. Rattray? I'm going to say Rattray because it feels like when you say Rattray, it feels just like, can't be that, can it? Can it? Ternary formatting has always been a challenge, and we're finally addressing it in 3.1.0 with the introduction of novel formatting style. All right, read on for the journey and the motivation behind this change, along with early developer feedback and an overview of curious ternary style. Okay. Please give us the experimental ternaries option a try and let us know what you think. All right, okay. Introduction: formatting nested ternaries nicely in a wide variety of scenarios is surprisingly tricky challenge. Absolutely. Developers have long found them so confusing to read that they end up just refactoring the code into an ugly series of if-else statements. I don't know if I believe this statement. So I'm just going to I'm going to lean into this, okay? Is a series of if-else statements ugly compared to ternaries? I just don't know if I buy that, because what it says to me is that if you have a ton of if-else statements, perhaps there's a better way to organize your code, and that you're kind of hiding the problem by having pretty ternary statements. And so this is my big worry, is that it just leads people to just crazy code as opposed to more maybe different thought about code. Like, what is the core problem here? What are we doing wrong? Are we effectively needing some, like a bijection, a map that makes more sense to kind of reason about our code than whatever we're about to get? So I'm a little bit worried. Early returns, great way to kind of simplify code. I don't know. Thoughts, really. Okay. Hold on. Just beautiful thoughts. All right, let's see. According to the beta testers, often with a let declaration, an immediately evoked function expression or a separate function entirely. Now, that also seems seems wild. I would also argue that if you're doing an IIFE at any point within your code, to me, you've already goofed up. Like, this should be a good example that you already are kind of on the wrong side of things. That should be really just a strong indicator. That's why, again, this is actually, I make this strong argument a lot of times, and I really want you to think about this argument, which is, should you have 2 or 4 spaced indenting? Now, maybe you like 2 space, you feel better about it, but there's a reason why when I program, I have kind of a strong 80-column line right here that's not a requirement, but it's an indicator to me. And I go with 4 space indenting. The reason why I do that is so that I can kind of signal to myself when I've goofed up a little bit, when I've gone a little too far on my indenting. So by having a 4 space indent, I'm able to early signal myself along with an 80 column that I'm just creating really long code. And really long code, I feel, is a lot harder to follow than very vertical code. Again, that is my take. You can have your take, okay? I don't care if you think vertical code is harder. I think it's easier. I think it's easier to debug. I think it's easier to step through. I think it's easier to add print statements in, okay? Personal opinion. So shut up. If 80 column is not enough for 4 space indenting. That's the point. I'm keeping it between 1 to 2 levels, right? That's why I do it. Like, that's precisely why I do it. It's because by the time I get to a 3rd indent, I'm now going, I've goofed up a little bit. Now, granted, I don't write Java. Facts of life. I don't write Java. All right, historical background. Prettier's original naive approach just added indentation to each level of the nested ternaries. Worked fine in simple cases, but obviously doesn't scale with long chain of nested ternaries and had other problems. I would say that the problem doesn't exist. The problem exists because we're solving the wrong thing. Oopsies, I just clicked the link. That's still my take. So in 2018, we replaced the with flat ternaries, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but was not well received. The issue was, the issue asking it to be reverted had well over 500 upvotes. While we did ultimately revert back to indented ternaries, we wanted to find a better way. By the way, I'm going to throw something out here. Okay, I know this is a complete ADHD moment, but I want to say something. Okay. Right now, we are reading about nested ternary. Okay, you know what? I'm actually going to save it. I'm going to save this take, okay? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it because I feel like there's a better place for it. I feel like there's a better place when we get down to here, okay? When we get down to here, I'll come back. I'm coming back. ADHD, re-back in. We're re-backing in. Over the last few years, we've explored and experimented with many, many possible solutions which would be as readable as indented ternaries in common cases, but would scale well in a wider variety of situations. Okay, challenging criteria. Ideally, we find one schema that would meet our criteria. In all cases, it should be easy to follow. What's the if? What's the then? And then what's the else that they map to? Okay, this is good criteria. I like this. The code should fluidly flow from a single ternary to a chain of two to a long chain of simple cases to something more complex with a few nested conditions. Most alternatives we explored failed this test. Okay. The syntax in JSS, TypeScript conditional expressions, which cannot be expressed with if, and normal JS should all feel free or should all look and feel the same. Again, this right here should be the greatest identifier. This is one of React's worst gifts to mankind, is to normalize using multi-chained ternaries. Use a function, people. Okay, a function can return null. You could think of a better way to do this. It's wild, okay? It's wild that you're doing this, okay? Stop it. Use a function. Figure it out. All right, it should scale to nested ternary chains of arbitrary length. Imagine TypeScript conditional types with a dozen of alternative cases. Indented ternaries clearly failed, arguably 1, and even 3 have almost always printed JSX ternaries in flat but readable format, with unfortunately felt unnatural outside of JSX. Many people in the community were excited about case style, drawing inspiration from the match syntax from languages like Rust or OCaml. OCaml mentioned. Can we get an OCaml mentioned? OCaml mentioned. December 1st, advent of code, OCaml, getting excited. December 6th, TJ will be at my house. TJ, the OCaml, second most influential OCaml streamer on Twitch, will be here. And we're going to OCaml together. OCaml, our camel, okay? But it did not mean number 2 in other goals. Okay, a surprising solution. The good news is that we found a formatting algorithm that met our criteria. The bad news is that it's novel and thus unfamiliar to most developers. In beta testing this feature, we found developers were quite skeptical when they first saw it. Okay, but then after using it for a bit, they didn't want to go back. All right, this is good. So everyone's saying, yay, nice. Not convinced. Okay, anyways, another developer had to say this. My first few hours on the rule, I felt a little odd, but by hour 2, I'd used it a few times to solve problems that otherwise would have been ugly refactors to if statements that I'm not going back. Man, this is worrying me so much. The state of JavaScript is just, I'm actually getting anxiety over what I'm going to have to read. I used to hate nested ternaries. Good feelings, but I also hate structuring a nice line of code to if-else statements. The new rules add an understandable linear if-else expression to the language and is much nicer than multiple ternaries as nested branches. Okay. So we felt we had a winning formula, but we knew it could be jarring introduction to the community. As a result, we're formatting behind a temporary experimental. Okay, let's see it. Let's just see it. Styling overview. So what does the new style look like? Here's a quick contrived example and the thinking behind curious ternaries. Okay, pet can bark, is scary, wolf, else dog, else outer else, can meow, inner then, cat, inner else, of the outer else, probably a bunny. Okay, every line with the question mark is an if. If you see foo question mark, it's like asking if foo, then. Every line that starts with a colon is an else. If you see colon, that means else foo. Yes. If you see this, that means else if foo. Every line with this or this is a then. Yes. Okay, yes, these are all rules of ternaries. Here's the code rewritten to demonstrate case-style ternaries. All right, animal. Well, hold on. Dang it. I mean, you inverted the logic, though. This, dang it, I really wish you would have kept the same structure. Notice that he flipped it inside out. Is scary is now on the inside as opposed to the outside. In fact, I'm not even sure if they yield the same results. Do they yield the same results? They don't yield the same results. I don't think so. If it okay, so look at this. This statement right here, if I'm not mistaken, if the pet is not scary but can meow, you will get this. You can only meow. No, wait, that's not it at all. Okay. Damn. Okay, yeah, okay, this is the same. This does yield the same thing, but it's just organized different. Okay, I see it. Ternaries suck. I see what's going on here. You can see this is a nice, concise way to get something approaching matched out. I don't think this is nice. I think this is, if I saw it, I would say that you done effed up. Rethink how you're doing things. It's just how I feel. Our new formatting is fluid, a blend of curious ternaries, where the question mark is always at the end of the line, and K-style ternaries, where the question mark is in the middle of the line. Yeah, see, the problem here I have is I really have no idea where I'm going with it. Right? This is if this mouse, else if can bark, else inner if scary wolf dog, else if can meow cat, else if can squeak mouse. I mean, you have it twice here. Else bunny. You know, I just don't think we want to write this kind of code. I really think we should try to do something a little different. You know, like if you're doing all of this, one would have to ask, you've messed up a lot of things, right? If you're doing this many checks, I feel like you've goofed up somewhere else, right? Like I feel like maybe you need a function or an interface that's going to say, like if only there was a pattern that existed in which normalizes this, like say toString, or something that you can call on the object to produce this, as opposed to whatever this is. Like, I don't like that you're inverting the responsibility to some function on the outside to, like, determine, like, stringified type. Like, something about this just really bothers me. Strategy pattern meant, yeah, I know, it was a strategy pattern. That's what I'm saying, is that there is a strategy in which makes this easy to pattern out. I like it. It's a quick brain dump. But the problem is that the problem here is that every time you add any sort of variation on this, you must alter this ever-growing line of ternary statements. What happens if each one of these functions are expensive? This also means that if you have this thing that exists, you can't have a variation of types. Right? Your type, every time you want to add a type, it has to be can squeak. It has to have can bark. It has to have is scary. It has to have can meow. It has to have can squeak twice, right? Like it has to have all of these things existing on it. Whereas if you invert it and try to do more of a composition version, you just have to have the thing. Right? So to me, this is solving a problem. I know this isn't meant to be an example. I understand this. But when I see code like this as an example, what I'm kind of getting fixated on is that if you're writing all these if-else statements, are you sure you're not just doing bad typing? Are you sure you're not messing up composition? That's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a composition pattern that just works better here as opposed to whatever we have going on. Does that make sense? Okay, just something. Give us your feedback. We like the more readable new default. We really hope you can give us the experimental ternaries. I feel like I'd rather have an ESLint rule that's like you can only use a ternary in a return statement, and that ternary can only have like single member call expressions and constant/variable return, right? Like I would want it so constrained, it's like the complete opposite, right? I would rather have it so that it's just like brutally tiny where you can use and how you can use a ternary. I would want the exact opposite, honestly. So Do I think this is beautiful? Do I think it's more readable? I absolutely think this is more readable. This is many times more readable than how people organize ternaries today. I like what they have done. This is good. Do I like the outcome of this? No, I don't like the outcome of this at all. The name. Don't give me ternaries, boy. Okay, I don't want it. Again.